And a good afternoon, everybody. The Grant Napear Show, Fox Sports, Sacramento, here on a President's Day. Hope you're staying dry. Starting here a little bit early, too. That's all right. Extra time, little OT for us today on the Grant Napear Show. Rhino in for Grant. We've got a full day for you. A lot to talk about. The NBA All-Star Game. Wow. Was it a little bit better than we expected? Is there a path forward? Did you watch? Sure didn't look like a lot of people went. Not sure if you caught All-Star Saturday night. Scratch that. All-Star Saturday afternoon in LA. A lot of empties. My guy Rob Perez from NBA Radio put some video out. Now, luckily, because they were playing at the Intuit Dome, they've got those fancy little lights that light up on every seat. So it's really hard to tell whether or not somebody is in that seat, especially when you go to the theater lighting. So for me, the main event of All-Star Weekend was Adam Silver stepping to the podium. I want to go over what Adam Silver said, how it affects the Kings directly in the NBA, and also the future of the NBA. Are we looking at some changes sooner rather than later? A lot of talk about expansion. Adam Silver did draw a line in the sand when it comes to expansion and relocation. Interesting there. By the way, we've got a couple of volunteers joining us today on the Grant Napear Show. Rhino in for Grant. Yes, two great.
Both of these guys are volunteers.
No doubt.
Sure.
They're very good volunteers. In fact, the first one coming up here in just about 30 minutes, someone you know well, Jerry Reynolds joining us at 3:30. Looking forward to have Jerry on with us. And also Joe Davidson from the Sac B. Everything, college, high school sports. One of my favorite guys here in Sacktown. Joe Davidson will come on and talk to us about the state of college sports. It seems like college sports are always in my lap when I sit in for Grant in the big chair. And they're topical here in Sacramento because of the news that came out over the weekend about Sacramento State and the football program and the MAC conference, which we will get into. But it's also topical at a national level. Not sure if you're familiar with Jerome Tang, who was the head coach of the Kansas State basketball program. Interesting how his dismissal went down. And it's not so much what I want to dig into, not so much about his dismissal, but the growing trend in college sports. And I don't know if it's a good trend or a bad trend, because I think you can make arguments for it on both sides. So we'll get into that with Joe Davidson as well. He joins us at 5 p.m. today. Would love your participation in the show. You can text us 916-779-0929. You can call the show as well. Get in there. Love my people on YouTube taking in the show. On the Fox Sports YouTube page, we are streaming live to there in X. So hop in the chat. We'll get to your questions here in a few minutes. Did you have a chance to listen to the Daytona 500 on Fox Sports Radio this weekend? We had the race on Sunday, yesterday. First-time winner, Tyler Reddick. You know, he didn't lead a lap until the final lap. That's what's so fascinating to me about NASCAR, is in one just instance, you can be out of the race and you could be the favorite to win the race. And the same is true on the back end. In one instant, you can come from the back and not lead a lap for the entire entirety of the 500 miles and win the Super Bowl racing. By the way, Michael Jordan adds another championship to the mantle, this time, not the Larry O, the Daytona 500 title. You know, him and NASCAR were going at it for a little bit. We'll hear from Michael Jordan here in a little bit, but back to All-Star Weekend. We made a lot about it. Grant and I talked about Adam Silver facing the music. It was time for him to answer the tough questions. And with the exception of a couple of questions, I thought the media was fair and direct with Adam Silver. Unlike Rachel Nichols, who the last time Adam Silver had availability used one of those, and when I mean coveted question spots, I mean coveted. That room is filled with the big names in the national media, international media, now with NBA Europe as well, that is still on track, apparently. We'll get into that as well. She uses one of those questions to ask Adam Silver about Chris Paul in the Clippers. Not, hey, Adam, what's going on with the Clippers investigation? No. Do you think it's wrong how the Clippers are treating Chris Paul? Interesting, Rachel. However, I digress. The media was fair to Adam with everything going on between tanking, the aforementioned Clippers investigation, the draft lottery, and I thought Adam was fairly transparent about some of those things. Now, I did not take in most of the All-Star festivities. I was in and out of All-Star Saturday night. Did you take in the festivities? Let me know. 916-779-0929. You can text the show. You can call the show. By the way, if you tuned in for a Sacramento King to see what they were going to do, you wasted your time. They were the only team who was not represented this weekend at All-Star Weekend. Remember the Sacramento Kings golden rule. You have to do twice as much to get half. That's right, half of the recognition. League-wide, national media-wide. So no Kings representative there. From the 530, Rhino, what did you think about De'Aaron Fox hitting the game winner in the All-Star game? I didn't think twice about it. From the 601, Ryan wants to talk soccer because he just added penalty time. Yes, we've got some extra time, which means you have some extra time to get up in here before Jerry Reynolds joins us at 3:30. Now, one of the things that, and we're going to get to the Adam Silver sound. That's going to take a little bit. We've got a couple of longer sound bites, but I think they're important to listen to for this reason. They directly relate to the Kings. Adam Silver drew a line in the sand where many of us were saying and asking the question of the Kings, are they tanking? You know, Scott Perry, we've played this a few times already. He was asked about a week and a half ago about the Kings and tanking. Here was Scott Perry.
That's not in our vocabulary, tanking, institutional. You're not going to see a team that's going to go out here these final 30 games and say, we're trying to lose. Absolutely not. Because, again, the lottery system itself, look, the team that won it last year had the 11th best odds, Dallas. They weren't trying to lose last year, and they won it. And I think in the last 20, 25 years, 3-4 times the team with the worst record won the lottery. So there's no guarantee. It's not like football. If you had a worse record, you're going to get the number one pick. So, no, we want to compete.
So that was Scott Perry after the trade deadline, when we were able to ask him some questions. Credit to Scott for stepping up and doing that press conference. He did not need to do that. Monty McNair did not do that. But Adam Silver, back to the bigger point, acknowledged that this is a problem that is inexact to define. Some teams are just bad. And then other teams are caught in the middle. What do we say? Adam Silver said it over the weekend. That a lot of teams realize the worst place you can be is in that quote unquote purgatory area where you're not good enough to get a top draft pick, i.e. the play-in. Pretty much that's what it is, the play-in. So you're not good enough to get a top draft pick, but you're also not good enough to compete. So you get stuck in that middle ground. And that is where we are seeing some teams that have been fined, that could be fined. I don't want to say the two teams that were fined last week, Indiana, in the Jazz are in that middle ground. No, they're towards the bottom of their conferences, but their formula is different than the Kings. They have proved that they can play competent basketball, that their record could probably be a little bit better than last time I checked, 18 wins. So Adam knows that is, if you're going to circle the group of teams that might be looking to mail it in and to tank, that's the group you circle and you're looking at. Now, none of those teams have been fined, but the other thing that you have to circle when it comes to the groups of teams that might tank are those that have protections on their draft picks. Teams do not, especially in this CBA, want to have to give up draft picks. They want to maintain, retain draft picks, especially when it comes to this draft. So now we have three categories. We've got the teams that are just bad. We've got the teams that are caught in the middle, and we've got the teams that don't want to give up protections on draft picks that are promised to other teams this year. So when I say inexact definition, it's exactly what it is. And so the NBA is going to take this on a case-by-case basis. And from what I got from Adam Silver, it seems like when it comes to the root of the problem, they understand what the root of the problem is. Here's Adam Silver.
Maybe to further answer your question, are we seeing behavior that is worse this year than we've seen in recent memory? Yes, is my view, and which was what led to those fines, and not just those fines, but to my statement that we're going to be looking more closely at the totality of all the circumstances this season in terms of teams' behavior, and very intentionally wanted teams to be on notice. And there is a bit of a note when you see it quality to this. I mean, we spend a lot of time at the league office going back and forth with teams on injury reports, on coaches' decisions. It's not a position necessarily want to be in, but I'd say also to address your question, it's not what the fans want at the end of the day. Although my caveat is, and this is where teams are in a difficult place. Many of you in this room have written, and understandably about our teams, that the worst place to be, for example, is to be a middle of the road team, either be great or be bad, because then that will help you with the draft. And so in many cases, you have fans of those teams, maybe it's not what they want to pay for to see poor performance on the floor, but they're actually rooting for their teams in some cases to be bad, to improve their draft chances. So I think we're coming at it I'd say in two ways. One is, again, focusing on the here and now, the behavior we're seeing from our teams, and doing whatever we can to remind them of what their obligation is to the fans and to their partner teams. But number two, as I also said in that statement, the competition committee started earlier this year re-examining the whole approach to how the draft lottery works.
And that was the other big thing that we will talk about as the show goes on. Rhino in for Grant today. He's getting President's Day off, as he deserves. Give us a call, 916-779-0929. You can text the show as well. We'll get to your text in a minute. YouTube chat, poppin'. Patrick, hello. Athena, hello. Appreciate the comments. We'll get to those as well in a minute. To summarize what I'm trying to lay out for you about this tanking problem in the NBA is it is a team-by-team checklist. There is no universal checklist that the NBA can go down anymore when it comes to evaluating whether a team is tanking or not. And I thought Chris Haynes did an excellent job on NBA TV summarizing this. He said Adam really explained the nuances between a bad team like Sacramento, which now Zach LaVine is going to have season-ending finger surgery, hand surgery. A bad team like Sacramento, who's played their quote-unquote best players, their highest-paid players, for the majority of the season. Now, you might argue that the rotations have been inconsistent. They have. But has played them, and it's resulted in 12 wins. There is enough of a sample size with 26 games remaining that unless the Kings do something egregious with their personnel, that the NBA is going to look at them in a different light. Now, they still have decisions to make about Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray expected back soon. So after hearing Adam Silver, if I'm a Kings fan, I'm exhaling a little bit. Doesn't look like the commish is putting them in the same category. Because if you notice, he talked about teams when he issued these latest fines to the Pacers and to the Jazz. It wasn't just those two teams they were looking at. My guess is you would have already seen a fine from the NBA to the Kings had the league and Adam Silver, per the way they are looking at teams individually, believe the Kings were intentionally tanking. So we can get into a bigger conversation. One conversation that I think is very important to the future of the NBA is gambling. Adam Silver addressed gambling, and he went back to his old playbook, something that I have brought up multiple times on this show. We'll get to it in a little bit. All-Star Weekend, Patrick says that, the play was better. I'm looking at some of the other text messages. Did not watch any of the basketball. Watched the Olympics from the 548. Fair enough. Division I. All right. Motocross, PGA golf. Yeah, that was good. How about Anthony Kim? That was a great story from Live Golf. Maybe we'll have time to get to that. Jerry Reynolds with us at 3:30. Joe Davidson with us at 5 o'clock to talk college sports, the local high school sports scene, and also Sac State, their move to the MAC. I saw Grant put out a tweet over the weekend, and it was very, very controversial, stimulating, however you want to put it. I'm going to paraphrase that this makes no sense for Sac State. By the way, if you're not familiar with the MAC conference, here's a couple of things. Just generalized things. The most important things to know. Sacramento State is now out of the FCS starting this summer. They will move into the FBS. That's that big move that they've wanted to make to become championship bowl eligible, etc. To be in line, and I mean far, 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 far back in line to be part of the college football championship. They are now able to do so since they are part of the MAC. The reason that a spot opened up in the MAC conference is because Illinois State moved to the Mountain West. So the MAC consists of Akron, Ball State, Grant, Bowling Green. How about that? Bowling Green State in the MAC. Buffalo, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Kent State, Miami of Ohio, Toledo, Western Michigan, UMass, and now Sac State. Geographically speaking, this makes very, very little sense. Very little sense. Financially speaking, does it make sense? We'll talk about it with Joe Davidson. Also, we'll talk about some of the reports coming out about what this means for Sac State. How did they find themselves in the position to be able to get into the MAC conference? So all that ahead, coming up here on the Grant Napear Show. Jerry Reynolds joins us here in about 12 minutes, which means we are going to have a short segment on the backside. I do want to give you a couple quick thoughts beyond Adam Silver and All-Star Weekend, and then we'll talk to Jerry about this past weekend. We'll talk to him about what's ahead for the Kings. 26 games remaining on the calendar. They kick up on the 18th. Kings will be playing, or excuse me, is it the 19th, I believe? Got the schedule in front of me. As the Kings are wrapping up their All-Star All-Star Weekend vacations, they return. Yes, there we go. It is actually going to be against the Magic. That's right. At home, the 19th. So this Thursday, the Kings are back in action, which means there will be probably a late practice on Wednesday open to the media. We'll get into all of that and more with Jerry Reynolds. Rhino in for Grant Napear here on Fox Sports Sacramento. We are Fox Sports. along on a Monday. Rhino in for Grant on the Grand Napear Show, Fox Sports Radio, Sacramento. Jerry Reynolds coming up here in about 10 minutes. We're going to have a quick segment, so we have plenty of room for Jerry. We're talking All-Star Weekend. We are also talking about Sac State's move to the MAC Conference. I'm going to tell you my big takeaway from All-Star Weekend, which I think is an important one. But first, we always want to hear from you. Get involved with the show, 916-779-0929. You can text, call us. Let's go to the phones. We bring in Mac. Mac, what is going on today, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
Doing great, my friend. What's up?
So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the disconnect of sports and then them complaining about viewership or declining ratings. Well, for example, we see with WWE, TKO Sports, the cheapest for one night at WrestleMania for the cheapest seat is $750. And they just had an emergency meeting wondering, why is no one purchasing these tickets for WrestleMania? Why is no one coming? Because you're pricing out the people who actually care about wrestling. Your biggest demographic is middle class with kids. Well, who can afford to go at $750? And then we look at and we can compare that to, let's say, the Sacramento A's. They come to the A's. They come to Sacramento. What did they do? For A's games, they double their parking compared to River Cats games. So they price gouged everybody. Or let's see what Vivek has done. You were talking last week to Grant about getting into the Smoothie King Arena. I think it was $7, correct?
Yeah.
If I want to go see Orlando on Thursday, my cheapest seat is $30 for one ticket. And the Kings are consistently the worst. I wouldn't say they're not the worst, but they're at the bottom, the least entertaining team in the league consistently. And we always hear how Vivek is raising season ticket prices. And it's just and then also you can look at the 49ers stadium. That's atrocious. $250 to fry in the sun in the fourth deck. These owners and these teams or not teams, but the NBA and Major League Baseball, they wonder, well, how come no one's watching? And the reason is you sold out for corporate fans and you outpriced your diehard fans. And that's the reason your ratings stink. That's the reason people don't care. And don't even get me started with how they're going with the streaming services and even more outpricing us. So I just wanted to talk about that. It's so stupid that they have to have an emergency meeting, the WWE, and they still can't figure out, and they're not willing to recognize that, oh, maybe your ticket, your product is too overpriced. Anyway, that's all I had to say on that.
Hey, Mac, I appreciate the call.
Take it easy.
Good stuff from Mac right there. You're not wrong, Mac. Ironic that he brings up the WWE. Is this a big WWE show? I know Napes loves to, Max, since you brought it up, I'll talk about it briefly. Yeah, it's across the board when it comes to pricing, dynamic pricing people out. I don't think the NBA did themselves any favors with the start times this weekend in Los Angeles. It's called All-Star Saturday Night for a reason. It was Saturday afternoon. Now, if you're on the East Coast, that's a different story. You got it right at about prime time, dinner time, right? 6 o'clock. But that's not a cheap event to attend. And if you want to look at the dynamic pricing when it comes to actually attending the event, what about the dynamic pricing of coming to the event from out of town? It's All-Star Weekend. Hotels are going to be way more expensive. Not going to go down the entire list. I think everybody's smart enough to run down that checklist. If you have ever traveled somewhere to go to an event, everything's a little bit more. Now, I can't knock Vivek Ranadive for raising the prices. I can't. He would be the only owner in the NBA who is not raising prices this year for next season. But these last 26 games, it will be very interesting to track both the attendance and also the cost to get in. Especially during the week, time is valuable for all of us because you might have a $9 ticket, but then what's parking? $25, concessions, etc. You get my point. You're still probably on the hook for $100 for two people. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. I don't know, Mac, and you're right about WWE. I have no arguments when it comes to them and their pricing. They're saying we're a hot product, so we're going to price it as such. I think you can say the Royal Rumble was an outlier. But when I see Royal Rumble attendance at the All-Star game in Los Angeles, is that a bigger deal than a lot of people are making it out to be? Which has been relatively not a big deal. It's been small deal. There were a lot of empty seats. So if your pricing for that did not change relatively or that much compared to past years, and you're holding it in Los Angeles, what's that say about the demand? Now, the viewership was off the charts. I think the All-Star game this year, I think it was 8.8. I think it was 8.8 million, I want to say. They reported it earlier. That's a positive. But hey, you know what? John Tesh, my man, you brought the energy to the All-Star game. There's no way those players weren't going to play hard and get pumped up, even if there wasn't a ton of energy from the fans. His live performance was unbelievable. That was really good stuff. But it is something to talk about. Something we can bring up with Jerry Reynolds here in the next segment. He will be joining us to talk about some of the problems going on with the NBA, what Adam Silver talked about. And also, Sacramento Kings coming home, 26 games left in the calendar. We'll get to more of your text messages, also more of your comments on the YouTube page. Give us a call as well, 916-779-0929. Can't wait. The one and only Jerry Reynolds joining us on the other side. Grant Napear Show here on Fox Sports Sacramento.
We are Fox Sports.
rolling along on a Monday, President's Day, here on the Grant Napear Show. Rhino in for Grant. You know, when I think of the people that I want to be surrounded by and talking to, any chance I can get, there's a small list. You know, one of them that's always on there, my favorite, the one, the only, Mr. Jerry Reynolds, joining us here on the show. Happy President's Day, Jerry.
Yeah, it is a happy President's Day. You know, just chilling here, watching it rain. But you know, we need the rain, so nice time to be retired and have nowhere to go, nothing to do, but get a chance to talk some sports with Rhino.
Hey, I'm not going to complain for the rain, keeping you indoors and giving me a little bit more time to talk with you. Are you hitting the treadmill today inside, I'm guessing?
I'm going to. I've been stalling, so I plan to. You know, probably about 6 o'clock. I got a couple of shows recorded that I will watch while I'm on the treadmill. That's my strategy.
There you go, Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. Hey, Jerry, since it's President's Day and the All-Star game was yesterday, if we had to field together a team of presidents to throw in the tournament, who do you think we're coming up with?
Well, probably the best player of former presidents, probably Barack Obama, because I know he liked to play, and he was a pretty good player. And now the rest of the crew, I don't know. I think the second George Bush, you know, Abe Lincoln was tall, not too mobile. So I don't know. I don't know that it'd be an easy task to get a team of presidents together.
Yeah, I'm with you. Abe was limited. He's like the old school big men that just couldn't get around, but they can get the ball in the bucket. But anyways, did you catch any of the All-Star weekend or the All-Star game?
I watched the 3-point contest because I always watch that because it's a skill and they really compete at it. And it's easy to see who wins because of the points. And so I really liked that, and I thought it was terrific. A lot of, you know, really great shooting, obviously, showing you the ability of players getting better and better with the three. And so I watched that. I did not watch the All-Star game because I've been, you know, in a protest mode for several years. Yeah. And I understand that it was a lot better. And so, you know, they're on the right track. But that format doesn't interest me. You know, it's kind of a made up pickup game kind of thing. In my mind, I know they tried harder and all that, but, you know, get back to East versus West, you know, a regular game or in better, you know, U.S. NBA players versus a team of international NBA players and play a real game. And I know Michael Wilbon's been on that take for years, and certainly I think he's right. And I think this was a step in the right direction, but it's still it's just too made up.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're coming off of the Four Nations hockey tournament, and the NBA immediately swerves to USA versus the international players. However, one thing that I think is great and really good is to hear Victor Wembanyama come out and be outspoken about wanting to play hard and showing that. That's very refreshing, especially for a young player that seems to be one of the up-and-coming faces of the league and looked to as a leader for these young guys.
Yeah, that was great, really, and I think it did have an impact. And I think it's almost a shame that it takes a foreign player and a young foreign player to basically encourage people to compete.
Yeah,
but I mean, and I know that there's been a lot of effort in that in the past, but I think with this format did make it a little easier to do that with the shorter games and all that. But it was great on his part. Says a lot about him. And like I say, I think probably he could become the face of the league in a few years with that kind of attitude.
No doubt about it. Jerry Reynolds joining us here on the Grant Napear Show, President's Day edition. Rhino in for Grant, Jerry Zach Levine reportedly going to shut it down and have surgery on his hand. How do you look at Zach's season this year?
Well, obviously it's disappointing. I mean, he started off terrific. Looked like he was on the way. Probably if you look at the first 15 games or so, looked like he's on the path for All-Star. You know, he was scoring efficiently, and then he wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, of course, I heard you earlier talk about it. And I think it's really true. The unusual rotations and all that, and he was caught up in that a lot as well. And so, for a scorer, you really need to, kind of know your minutes, your, who you're playing with, and all that sort of thing. And so, I think that hurt him. But yeah, an overall disappointing season. I think he'd be the first to admit that, and they're probably doing the right thing. There's no reason to. It's one of those injuries he might could play with, but if this is the point of what is best for him or the team, and the answer, of course, is no.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Get healthy. If there's anything this summer that changes with a team that might be in the Zach Levine market, as he's reported to be looking to pick up his option, which is in the neighborhood of just short of $50 million, it is the time to have surgery. And now you've got Domantas Sabonis, who should be coming back unless we're to learn that he has some type of injury that needs more attention than a sore lower back. Keegan Murray slated to come back. But Domas is the one that I want to focus on, Jer. We've talked about it on the post-game shows. You have to start Domantas Sabonis if he's healthy, correct?
Yes, you do. I mean, it's one of those things with what's happened and what Commissioner Silver has stated and the fines to various teams. It's pretty clear that if Domas isn't injured, not only should he play or must play, but he clearly got to start. You can't, I think the league is going to be looking at all these teams that are in effect tanking through trying to, or just because they're not very good. In most cases, they're not very good. But so I think he has to play. I think Keegan has to play a lot when he comes back. And I don't know how that all plays out, but I don't think you can. Certainly teams have a way of controlling minutes a little bit. But to your point, does he have to start? Yes. Does he have to play probably at least 25 minutes a game? I think, yes, he does.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in that 20 to 25 minute range as well, because the Kings, certainly Scott Perry has a challenge coming up this offseason with two big contracts in Domantas Sabonis and Zach Levine that he's going to have to negotiate. And Jerry, how much worry goes into protecting Domas as you come down this home stretch as well for the summer?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think with I guess what I'd say, I don't know. I mean, really, because with Domas, does the team really want to build around Domas going forward? That's one question that we don't know. He's certainly not so old that you couldn't, to some degree. Or do you want to move him? And if you want to move him, of course, the same applies. I mean, he needs to be healthy and playing at a reasonable rate, because the league knows who he is. His credentials are there. I always say, this guy for 5 years has really been the leading rebounder in the league, and scored 19 points a game and on 60% shooting for 5 years. So he is who he is, and but he needs to be healthy or prove he's kind of healthy to have the value he should have. And big decision there, and I don't know. I assume the draft might impact that as well of Domas and what his value may or may not be.
Sure.
For the team.
It's a great point. Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. You brought up the tanking that Adam Silver addressed on Saturday. He also addressed the draft lottery and the issues with the system that the NBA is facing. Jerry, how do you see, and I know that there is no perfect answer, but is there any solution that has come to your mind or suggestions that might better associate the NBA with fairness to the bad teams and, teams being equitable and being able to compete?
I don't know if there is a real answer, because like he said, and I think I've heard you talk about it too, is that it's clearly an advantage in the NBA for bad teams to get top picks.
Yeah.
And the worst place to be is the 37 win, 38 win team kind of category, where you're kind of out of the lottery or the bottom of the lottery. And you can still get great players. I mean, the history has proved that. I mean, Jokic was the 41st pick, and Gilgeous Alexander was 11, and Giannis Antetokounmpo was 15th, and
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard was 14th or 15th. So that's a good part of the best players in the world. But it's certainly an advantage to be at the top of the draft. And so for teams that aren't good, it's to their advantage to go ahead and be in the lottery now. And they've done everything they can do. I think I listened to you earlier, and I heard one of the callers pointing out, and it's true, that the team with the worst record hasn't gotten the top pick very consistently at all. And so it's even for like 4 teams. So whether you're the worst team in the league or the fourth worst, you got, it's all the same. And then of course luck plays into it as well. I always remember I think one year who was it, Cleveland got a number 1 pick when they were like 11th or something, and I think ended up being a bad player, Anthony Bennett or somebody.
Yeah, Anthony Bennett.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of failed number 1s. I'll tell you, the Kings had one, but so yeah, I don't know what they can do other than what he's doing. Now, the only thing I'd say that he might consider doing is the first time it's defined, that where you're clearly setting out top players in the fourth quarter in order to lose, like Utah. Money, a certain amount of money is first time, but if it happens again, then you start taking draft picks. Maybe it's second rounds or future first and money. You got to get their attention. So there's things you could do or try, but other than that, I don't know. I know as a Kings fan, I know that I don't want to see them truthfully win too much,
Right.
and get out of the bottom 4. I'm just being honest.
So what do you want to see coming down the stretch as the Kings resume on the 19th versus Orlando?
I guess what I want to see, I want to be able to evaluate in my own mind where the young guys fit, or if they fit. In other words, with Reynaud and Cardwell and Neat and Clifford and Carter, and then of course you've got to add in now the Precious Achua. I think he's young. Then you got Hunter, who he's traded for. He's on the edge there, 27, 28. Of course, Keegan, and then of course Domas. In other words, so you really want to be able to, and Monk, by the way, evaluate guys that could be part of the team 3 or 4 years from now, and what role they could take, or guys you should move. In other words, if your goal is to get totally younger, that sort of thing. But I think especially with the young guys, because you need to evaluate. I mean, everybody assumes. I've always said, as a fan, I think that's one of the mistakes we all make, is you assume all these young guys are always going to get better.
Mm.
Well, they don't. The proof, it's kind of like golfers. Sometimes guys get out on the tour and they'll get a win, and you assume they're going to win a lot, and they never win again.
So true.
It's hard. But I do think. I mean, I'm not saying any of these guys. I'm very encouraged by all of them, but I mean, what I'm really saying is, for like Reynaud, I really like him, and I really like Cardwell. But the question I'd ask, as fans that have watched the team a lot, how much better is Reynaud than Spencer Hawes? How much better is Cardwell than Jason Thompson?
Mm.
And we know those guys didn't didn't get it done in a sense. I mean, they were NBA players and pretty good NBA players, but not good enough to play on a consistent winner. And those are the kind of things I think you have to start to try to evaluate.
No doubt about it. And especially this, to me, Jerry, is the time that if you have questions about the young guys and combinations with some of the guys that are, especially if they're under contract, going to be part of this team as we sit today going forward, a perfect example is give me some more Max Reynaud and Domantas Sabonis together.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I'm with you there. I mean, we've seen a little bit of Cardwell and Sabonis, and that's been okay, but I don't think it's a natural fit. And I think the world of Cardwell. I mean, but we don't know where all that's going. And I think, there's these other little secondary questions, just like how with Hunter and Keegan, how would that fit? You need to see or get a feel for it. I think another question is how much better or is he better? How much better is Hunter than Precious Achiuwa, let's say? You'd want to have a feel. I mean, it's not the plus or minus. Who knows? Hunter's, I assume, is better, but how much? I guess that would be the question, and I think it's a fair question. Or can Carter or Nick Clifford legitimately take minutes away from Malik Monk if it's a fair competition? Right now, I'd say no. But you'd like to, as the year goes on, maybe the answer gets a little more muddled.
So last question, because you just sparked something in my mind. What to you is a quote unquote fair competition?
Well, I mean, I think it would start in camp and where, I mean, I would honestly think that Monk deserves the spot when you start, let's say next year, with a current roster, because he's been a better player for a longer time. I would hope nobody would disagree with that. I think it'd be silly to disagree with that.
I think you didn't. I don't think you know how to do math if you think that you disagree with it.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, allow him the spot he deserves, and then let somebody beat him out over through preseason and then regular season. Kind of make it a competition, not kind of like, well, we're going to. This is next year. We're going to play these guys just because. Well, no. Basically, get your best players on the floor any way you can.
Amen. Amen to that. Jerry, you are the absolute best. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day weekend and the rest of the All-Star break. Treat you well, buddy.
Well, I enjoyed it as always, and anytime, Rhino. And hang in there. I know you got Joe Davidson coming up, one of my favorites. Does a marvelous job, always has. And so have fun the rest of the show.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. That is the one and only Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. Really interesting stuff, by the way, from Jerry. Fair competition. That is very... I don't want to use the word interesting, but that... it's conflicting, right? It's conflicting based off of the last training camp that the Kings had, but don't want to go down that hole too much. We've still got a ton of show ahead of us. Hour 2, we're going to talk more about the All-Star weekend, not about the play, but we're going to talk about Adam Silver and some of the bigger things that are facing the NBA and what I thought was a very good and transparent press conference from him, outside of a couple of softballs from the media and a little too much NBA Europe. I don't have a big craving for that, but we'll hear from Adam on the other side. We'll definitely, as Jerry said, talk some Sac State football and also some college basketball as well. interesting situation, the latest of the interesting situations in college sports occurring at Kansas State University with head basketball coach Jerome Tang, who has been dismissed for cause. What do you think that cause was? We'll talk about it in the second hour. And again, Joe Davidson joining us at 5 o'clock. Give us a call, 916-779-0929. You can text the show as well. We'll catch up on our text messages and everybody that's in the Fox Sports YouTube chat. Don't forget, download the free Fox Sports app. You can, Fox Sports KSAC app, I should say. You can listen from anywhere. Android, Apple Store, go get it. Type in Fox Sports KSAC. You can download it. Baki and his buddies were driving through the mountains in Serbia, listening on the app. So no excuse, wherever you're at, go get it. A lot up ahead, sitting in the big chair for Napes today. Let me know what else you want to talk about. If you want to go a different direction, no problem. Hit us up. We've got a lot more show coming for you here in the second hour. Rhino sitting in for Napes on President's Day. Grant will be back tomorrow. I know he's got some thoughts on Sac State football. Love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Fun show so far. Adam Silver on the other side. Talk about gambling, about that, and more on the Kings and the NBA's take on tanking. Lots still going here on Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. Coming back at you for hour 2. Live radio. Gotta love it. The weather not just affecting the roadways or your front yards, but here at Fox Sports Sacramento. Sorry about the interruption. We are back. We are still here. Rhino in for Grant today on the Grant Napear Show. Thanks for sticking with us. Sorry about that. We will make sure. Can't fix the weather. Not much we can do there, but we will make sure to make up for that. Hope everybody's having a great day. Awesome conversation with Jerry Reynolds about the Kings coming down the stretch, navigating what is this home stretch that is really not that difficult. If we're going to be real about it, the Kings have the easiest schedule coming home. So will that provide some opportunities for the young guys to play in some meaningful moments, get some shots down the stretch, all that. So appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for the messages, by the way, letting us know that there was a problem. We're getting it fixed. We are back on now. So anyways, big show still ahead. Joe Davidson will join us at the 5 o'clock hour. I've talked a lot so far about the All-Star break. I have talked about Adam Silver's press conference during All-Star weekend, which occurred on Saturday. And I want to get to the second part of Adam's take when it comes to really his powers, the game, the rules, and the importance of those. And the ultimate, which Matt called in about, which some of you have been commenting on, the fans, what you guys are paying to see the game, whether it's here in Sacramento, whether it's in Memphis, whether it is a top team in the league, the fans should never be forgotten about. And Adam Silver reinforces that.
I am completely beholden to the Constitution and the CBA. I mean, I believe in the rule of law. You know, I have broad powers in certain areas, but those are broad powers that are granted to me by those very documents. And I think it's in a way, I think it's what makes sports so special, that you establish these rules and and teams are required to follow them. I've been imbued in these powers by the very team owners and told you are responsible for enforcing these rules. And then there's procedures with a players association, a strong players association, where they can challenge certain rulings, but there's a whole mechanism in place for the way competition works. And I think it's the way it should be. When there's a process when we want to change rules, that's why I was saying in terms of the draft or the lottery, you know, where we have a committee system and competition committee, which, by the way, includes not just general managers, but team owners, representatives of the Players Association, players themselves. It's the whole community coming together and deciding what's in the best interest. And again, it's part of my job to remind everybody who's in this community that I understand in some cases what your short-term interest may be, but we better not lose sight of our fans here. We better not lose sight of the people who support this league, you know, day in and day out. And I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because you can get caught up in a particular issue. And even the media may be clamoring for something, or one of my team owners, and reminding myself, I got to step back, think long-term, think, how do we keep building this incredible sport where billions of people around the world love it, and taking that long-term perspective and making sure, you know, again, we are living up to that, the very Constitution that created this league.
Adam Silver again on Saturday, speaking to the media in LA over All-Star weekend. So he hit on a lot of things there. Most importantly, he talked about all elements of the NBA, whether it be the owners, the players, management, the league office, etc. And over the past couple years, a lot has been made about the All-Star game and the players not playing hard, and All-Star Saturday night not being entertaining. There's no doubt the NBA needs to reevaluate and look at this weekend, because I've got news for you. This weekend is not going away. It is too profitable for the NBA, regardless of whether or not people are paying to get in the building. At one point, he mentioned it would have a $500 million impact on Inglewood and the surrounding areas in Los Angeles. So the weekend's here to stay. So let's go down the list of the principal complaints that we've heard. I think there's two big ones, right? The first big one is the players and their effort in this game. Anybody out there who thinks you are going to watch a regular NBA game when you tune into the All-Star game, forget about it. It's not happening. These guys are not going to put their bodies at that level of risk for an exhibition, let alone an exhibition for the top stars. Not that it should matter, but the top stars in the league that takes place during their biggest vacation during the season. So instead of taking time off for their bodies, they are instead doing all of the monotonous media responsibilities, extra interviews, events, unless you're Jaylen Brown. Anybody catch that story? That was an interesting one. But back to the point. There's going to be a level of give in. The players are not going to give you that exact same product. Now, what the players have given you over the past 3, 4, 5 years is unacceptable. In fact, you could go back even further than that stated timeline. A lot of you have come at me for my take that is LeBron James is the one that made this area, this time period, this era of all-star basketball. He was the one that spearheaded the, it's okay, we're going to take it easy. We're going to send a message to the NBA. You know when that happened? That is when Kobe retired. The timelines match up perfectly. Now, I am not solely blaming LeBron James. Everybody decided, a lot of those players decided to follow LeBron James with that approach. So it is extremely refreshing to see this new era of guys come in, specifically Victor Wembanyama. Whether it's international versus USA, whether it's international versus international, it doesn't matter the format. Let's start at the effort. Victor is in that seat. He is one of those guys that is teed up to be a face of the NBA going forward. And for him to say, I'm playing, you can follow me or you can have your shot swatted into the 30th row, which, by the way, nobody's sitting there to catch the ball. So what happens? The younger guys, they're going to follow Victor's lead. You have to. And I thought that was such a principal difference. And I thought the effort yesterday was much closer to what you want to see for an all-star game, with the concession that you are not going to see what you see for 82 games during an NBA season. So I don't care what the format is, whether it's USA versus the world, whether it is a little tournament. The biggest problem that I think these players have with this new format is the long breaks in between their games. That was a big complaint last year with the All-Star game, with all of the different in-arena segments that went on, the TNT ceremony where Kevin Hart sent the guys fishing. On top of that, you had these different breaks as well where you're not playing and their bodies get cold and then they have to warm up again. Basketball players are creatures of habit. They don't like that. So what I'm saying is go back to any format that you want. Heck, you know what might be entertaining? How about anybody who is a first through third or fourth time All-Star versus anybody who is a 5-time and above All-Star. How about that format? You want to put this generation on blast? Run that out. See if that generation will compete with the newer generation. I think Adam Silver coming out of this weekend has to feel better, has to feel much better about the young guys who will lead this game into the future. Anthony Edwards, your MVP, he took it seriously after the game. He also pointed to Wemby as a reason for that. Because I can promise you, your Jamal Murrays, your guys that are there for the first time, they're going to play. Now, again, not to a real game standard, but they're going to play. So all in all, that was a win. And why not, by the way, why not change the format of the game? And I'm not saying the mini games like we saw the round robin tournament. But if you go back to a traditional format where it's Team A versus Team B, West versus East, etc., center it around whatever's going on that's topical that year in the NBA. What's popular, you know? Which leads me to All-Star Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. Can we all just agree that the three-point competition is the new dunk competition? The dunk competition has to go. It's done. Now, here's what you do. You don't take it away forever, but you wait to bring it back until the right time that you have that group that is capable of doing it, that wants to do it, that will give you the shock and awe and the old-time nostalgia of what a real dunk contest is. Feature the three-point shootout. If you want to replace it with a King of the Hill, a one-on-one battle, something fresh, then do it. But the dunk competition has to go. It's got to go. Looking at your text messages. 531 or 631, excuse me. Hey, instead of Grant's rant, would you like to do Ryan's grievances? Yeah, probably not, because that's Grant's general area. If I have a good grievance, I will bring it up. I definitely do not have a good grievance. I'm coming off of an awesome weekend. Shout out, by the way, to Brian Bennett and Margot and everybody over at Bennett's. We didn't just dine there for Valentine's Day. We went back the next day for brunch for Liam's Valentine's Day. So thank you very much to them for taking awesome care of us. 216, is Sac State joining the MAC for both football and basketball? Football only is my understanding on that. And we're going to talk about that more with Joe Davidson coming up at 5 o'clock. I do want to get into the Jerome Tang situation at Kansas State before we talk to Joe. I think that's important. We've still got more sound from Adam Silver that I think is topical. I'm not going to run you through 20 to 30 minutes of the commish, but gambling, Adam Silver again, dropping down on his knees and asking, praying, pleading for the federal government to come in and put legislation in place, all while Adam and the league and the rest of the leagues are still sweeping up money. Now we have a distinction between, I'll let Adam talk about it, but traditional gambling versus picks, the alternative market. So we'll get to that as well. Your phone calls, give us a call, 916-779-0929. Text messages, YouTube chat, going to get to you as well. Ditch the NBA Cup, says Peter Anderson. Don't disagree with that. Peter says money awards for playing in the All-Star game. I don't think that's going to matter to them, Peter. These guys already have more money than they can really live with. I shouldn't say live with. What am I talking about? you can live with a ton of money. They have more money than they can spend. I don't think money is the incentive there. It's respect for the game. Rhino in Sacktown, in for Grant Napear, here on Fox Sports Sacramento.
We are Black Horse.
916-779-0929. Grant Napear Show, Fox Sports, Sacramento. Rhino in for Grant today. We're talking NBA All-Star. Not necessarily breaking down the game, but the changes that need to be made coming to the NBA. We've still got Joe Davidson ahead at 5 o'clock. But before we get to your text, let's go to the phones. Talk to our man, Lynn. What's going on today, Lynn?
Mr. Ryan, good job doing the substitute teacher today, man. Good job.
Appreciate it, brother.
Hey, I want to move over to a couple areas, mix it up a little bit, talk a little bit of NASCAR. Got a chance to listen to NASCAR a little bit, had to run an errand. So it was nice when I hopped in my car while I was in the middle of the race. I can listen to it here on Fox Sports Sacramento. That was kind of nice. Got back and watched the last 50 laps and was able to see our local kid, not the local kid, but close grow up in this area up in Corning, which is north of Sacramento. Tyler Reddick winning the Daytona 500 for his team owner, Michael Jordan, which I thought that was very poetic after last off-season rumble in the courts. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I need to move over to the Olympics real quick. You know, Ryan, I am a stat guy. You know how big the Bay Area is in population?
I'm going to say like 6 million.
Okay, so if you go around the whole bay, it's about 8 million.
Okay. In the
There's
ballpark.
this little country. Yeah, you're close. There's this little country that has about under 6 million people, 5.7 million, that is leading the medals, like destroying the rest of the nation or all the other countries. It is so unbelievable how a country that is 5.7 million people just go every year to the Olympics and just destroy the rest of the competition. Luckily, they don't do good in ice skating, hockey, or luge and bobsled. They would just own the Olympics. Have you been keeping up with the Olympics at all?
You know, I've watched a little here and there, but I have not been nightly checking in on the updates. Which country is that, Lynn?
That is good old Norway. It's just amazing. It's 5.7 million people. The size, it is like 75% the size of the Appalachian Mountains. Just think that. So you got a country that's 75% of those mountains that has 5 million people, which is less than the Bay Area, just like destroying everybody. You think a country that has 330 million can maybe get some people in there that can compete with them. But I think that's always funny. They've just been so dominant over the last, 20 years. I remember my grandfather, he went to the 60 Olympics up in Tahoe when they were up in Squaw Valley. So yeah, they've just been good forever. As they lead, I think 400 medals to the closest is like 300 medals going to the games. It's pretty crazy how successful that country is for being so small.
Yeah, but Lynn, that's not out of the norm for them, right? Because they really do, growing up, like basketball, the major sports aren't their thing. It's these things within the Winter Olympics.
I guess when you grow up, you know how you hear a story from your grandfather, you have to walk in the snow. I guess they got to ski the snow to go to school. You know what I'm saying? I saw your picture. I saw your picture at Bennett's. I had to tag you with my dinner, so I saw that you liked that. I had to try the gift cards that I won, so I had to go over there and try that restaurant out. I know that you and Grant talked a lot about that restaurant, so I had to go check that Bennett's out. Do you have a preference?
Oh man, everything.
Which one's better?
Oh, I love all of them. They're all a little bit different. First time, go to Roseville.
First time, go to Roseville. Okay. All right, man. Good show as always, man. Always appreciate you, Ryan. Take care.
Appreciate you, Lynn. Good stuff from Lynn. Appreciate him taking the time to call the show. If you'd like to call the show as well, again, 916-779-0929. I'm going to put this delicately because I don't want to offend anybody that is very, very much into the Winter Olympics. But is it just me? Is it just this Olympic cycle that there is a growing disparity between, I don't know if the word is, what's the right word? The Winter Olympics are just not as sexy as the Summer Olympics. Maybe it's the time of year because we're in winter. Maybe it's because We're here in beautiful California where you have to travel in most places to go get snow. If you live in Sacramento or the Bay Area, it's just different. I don't know what it is, but when I do tune into the Olympics, something catches me. Now, I'm not a big fan of the figure skating. I'm just not my thing. I understand how hard it is. I've tried ice skating. I could barely stay off of my tuchus. But I do like bobsled. Curling is interesting. There's been a few things that catch my attention. The snowboarding, the skiing at times, but it's just, it doesn't seem like it is too big. As Tristan says, I'm very offended. Tristan, I find it hard to believe that you are very offended by that. Usually it takes a little bit more to get you offended, my man. I'll go to Jerry and ask him. He's the good judge of you, Tristan. Only Tristan can create a relationship through one of our programs with Jerry Reynolds. Love it. But yeah, the Olympics, it's just, I don't know. Is it just me? Please tell me if you think it's just me. I would like to know. It just hasn't been that exciting to me. And that's coming off of somebody that's been at darn near every Kings game this season. I mean, I know what's not exciting in the Olympics. They just have not really been there. So one of the things, speaking of the Kings and the NBA, that is a big topic of conversation is parity in the NBA. It is the draft system. It is, can we revamp it? How will it be revamped? It's funny that it was asked directly to the commissioner about what punishments would or would not be on the table when it comes to tanking.
Something that we've been spending a lot of time on with our competition committee, outside consultants, advanced analytics. I mean, part of the problem, David, is that if you step back, and the fundamental theory behind a draft is to help your worst performing teams restock and be able to compete. And by the way, yes, we want parity, but parity of opportunity. You know, there's still going to be better managed teams, et cetera. The issue is if teams are manipulating their performance in order to get higher draft picks, even in a lottery, then the question becomes, even if teams were rewarded for draft picks purely according to the predicted odds of the lottery, are they really the worst performing teams? And my sense is, talking to GMs and coaches around the league, that there's probably even more parity than's reflected in our records. And that goes to the incentive issue. It's not clear to me, for example, that the 30th performing team is that much measurably worse than the 22nd performing team, particularly if you have incentive to perform poorly, to get a better draft pick. So it's a bit of a conundrum. And you know, as I said, you know, the All-Star is 75 years old, the league is 80 years old. It's time to take a fresh look at this and to see whether that's an antiquated way of going about doing it. I mean, ultimately, we need a system to fairly, I think, distribute players. It's in, I think, the players' interest as well as the teams that you have a level of parity around the league. There's only so many jobs in so many cities, but you know, we got to look at some fresh thinking here. I mean, what we're seeing right now is not working. There's no question about it. And yes, is there more I can do? Have I attempted not only to, you know, respond to behavior we've seen, but send a clear message that we're going to be scrutinizing everything we see going forward? Absolutely. But I don't think that's the way to manage this system long term. Of I know it when I see it, or people in the league office. It'll lead to very unhealthy relationships between us and our teams.
If I could follow up.
Sure.
Is there any talk of taking draft picks away from teams that do this as opposed to finding them?
There is talk about every possible remedy now to stop this behavior.
So that is the commissioner, the back part of that, taking his belt off and putting it over his knee by saying everything is on the table right now in terms of punishment. I do like that the NBA is open to change. 631. Talking about the Olympics. We'll get to that in a second. 916 says, need all-star games in small markets like Sac. We can house rock, or we can rock concerts. Okay, yeah, I got what you're saying. The problem with all-star games in small markets is infrastructure. Now, certain cities are set up, like Indianapolis. So many big conventions go there. You've seen Super Bowls there. And I don't disagree with you. It would be a rocking atmosphere here in Sacramento, but there's just not enough infrastructure. It's kind of that unwritten sports rule where a team builds a new stadium or a new arena that they're going to get a big event. Well, unfortunately, in Sacramento's case, you just don't have the luxury hotels and the capacity. If it was ever going to be discussed and really looked into about an all-star game here in Sacramento, which, by the way, would not happen with a team that is the worst in the NBA. It just would not. This team would need to be back and have a sustained sample size of winning. That doesn't mean winning championships, but they would need to be stringing together playoff appearances for the NBA to consider that, in my opinion. But if you really looked into it, you would have to involve all of the surrounding areas in Sacramento, which means you are spreading out the All-Star Weekend to Napa. You're spreading it out to the Bay Area, places that can accommodate what the NBA needs for an event of that magnitude. But the fan base, you would kill it. It would probably be one of the best energy-wise all-star events in history. That's what's so sad about it, right? You know it would be so good, yet it's just so impossible to think about or fathom. Peter says Grant pointed to the Detroit Pistons as a team that is rebuilt through the draft, but any team with any competence that drafts the number 1, number 5, and number 5 picks in consecutive years should be good. Okay, well, I think you're Peter. Let's make 2 quick points here. And we've got Joe Davidson coming up at 5 o'clock. Looking forward to speaking with him. We will talk about Sac State football in the next segment. We'll lay out what's going on with Sac State football in the MAC conference in advance of Joe joining us at 5. But Peter, you're putting 2 words together that should not be together. Any team and competence. Peter, how many competent front offices have missed on draft picks? I would argue that they should be praised for hitting on those picks. To do that 5 times or 4 times in a row, Peter, that's more than competence. Detroit thinks that you are sliding them right now. Come on, man. Competence? Any team with competence in the front office could nail 4 draft picks that were all in the top 5. No. Don't forget, there is an aspect of luck that goes to that as well. They've done well. It's how you have to do it. You got to do it through the draft. And let me give you, as we get to break, I'm going to give you one team that you better watch out for, that right now has the draft capital to be a force, not in the next year or 2 years, but in few years up the road. It's the Memphis Grizzlies. They have drafted so well, both early and late in the draft, and now have a war chest of draft picks that only rivals Oklahoma City's. So that's another team that's drafted well. No doubt the Kings need to draft well. Scott Perry has not drafted bad since being in Sacramento, but we're giving him a 3-year sample size, as we've said many a times. Rolling along, Sac State football. Next segment, Joe Davidson, 5 p.m. Thanks for being here. Give us your thoughts as well. We'll get back to the chat line, the YouTube chat, and the phones, 916-779-0929. Grant Napear Show, right here, Fox Sports, Sacramento.
We are the Force.
Joe Davidson coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, top of the 5 o'clock hour. Looking forward to speaking with him. Let's talk a little Sac State football. Ryan in Sacktown with you, sitting in for Grant Napear here on the Grant Napear Show on Fox Sports Radio. give us a shout. Let us know where you're listening from. Would love to hear from you on the text line, phone line, YouTube chat as well. So a big weekend for Sac State football. It's announced that they are moving to the MAC conference. That's the Mid-American Conference. This is on the tails of Sac State announcing that they will be building a new football stadium at the Cal Expo, or on the Cal Expo grounds. This is also after a coach, their head coach, Brandon Marion, exited for Colorado with Deion Sanders. There was a push for this team to be a big-time Division I football team. I'm not going to sit here and talk about whether or not Sacramento is a football town. I don't think that I have enough knowledge at the correct level to make that distinction. But what I do know is everything that's happening with Sac State football just feels rushed. Nothing feels organic. It feels like these jumps are leaps instead of small hops that usually happen as a program grows over the years. So starting July 1st, 2026, Sac State will join the MAC. They will be a football-only affiliate of the MAC. The significant thing of note here is this now takes Sac State from FCS to FBS. You want me to put it in layman's terms? They are a legitimate Division I football program now. They are in a mid-major conference, at best, mid-major, and we'll ask Joe Davidson about this, but here's the other teams that are in the MAC. Akron, Ball State, Bowling Green. Grant will like that. That means we get Sac State Bowling Green matchups. Grant, you know Grant's going to get a box for that game. It's Sac State. Buffalo, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Kent State, Miami of Ohio, Toledo, Western Michigan, UMass, and now the Hornets. Where's the outlier there? I mean, it doesn't take a genius. These teams are all the way across the nation. So, okay, we've seen all these different football teams, maybe at different speeds, depending on the strength of their program, depending on the NIL backing, their boosters, realigning when it comes to conferences. Right? Usually it's a mutual scratch on the back. It's going to work out for the conference and it's going to work out for the team financially. How does this make any sense for Sacramento State? Let's look at it from this side. What if Sac State was being paid to join the MAC? Does Sac State financially have the backing to make those types of road trips every single year? I don't know the answer to that. So that was if Sac State was getting a benefit for joining the MAC. Well, according to Yahoo, the terms of this agreement reek of desperateness from Sac State. So check this out. The MAC presidents voted to approve the addition, replacing the spot left by Northern Illinois, who is moving to the Mountain West. Northern Illinois, a team that you have seen shock some other teams, some big schools, one of those teams that, that makes sense for them to move to the Mountain West. It feels like that would be proper timing for them. Here's the financials. Sac State will pay an $18 million entry fee, not abnormal for a team joining a conference. But they'll pay an $18 million entry fee with reports of $6 million due in 1 year, plus a $5 million fee to the NCAA for the FCS to FBS transition, totaling around $23 million. Okay. Can Sac State do it? That is not that unnormal. This is where things get weird, per reports. Under the deal, Sac State will not receive any conference revenue distributions, and they will cover the travel costs for visiting MAC teams, addressing the extreme geographic mismatch. We're talking about over 2,000 miles between Sac State and some of the other MAC teams. Sac State is paying for the MAC teams to come play at Sac State on top of their travel to go play the other MAC teams on the road. This agreement is reportedly for 5 years. Excuse me, 6 years. 5 years or 6 years. Excuse me. I will confirm that in a second. How does this benefit Sac State? The only benefit to me is you are now FCS. Joe Davidson will be on with us here in just a few minutes to talk about where the benefits come from this with Sac State. What do you think? Hit us up, 916-779-0929. Text us your opinion. Hit us on the YouTube chat, Fox Sports YouTube, Fox Sports Sacramento YouTube. This seems like, on the surface, a rushed decision to get into the FCS. Arguably, is this a decision that could set the program back years? Even at the FBS or the FCS level, excuse me, you can still go play the big boys on the road. You can earn your rep. You can get paid money to get pounded into the ground. It's how the system works. You can build up your NIL funds, and then when the time's right, jump to FBS. But now it seems like Sac State, unless there's something they know that we don't know, is just in a complete hurry and fixated on getting to FCS. Or excuse me, FBS, which they will now be in. We'll ask Joe about the terms of this deal. I just don't know. I wonder if this is going to be something that Sac State looks back on and says, man, we should have waited a couple years. We'll see. So we've also got the story that's coming out of the NCAA with basketball that I want to get to. And I want to talk to Joe Davidson about that as well, because what's going on, or the most recent example at Kansas State of coaches being dismissed for cause. In this case, Jerome Tang. If that name sounds familiar, Jerome Tang lit up his team in a post-game presser. It wasn't anything obscene. To me, it was just old school coaching, as I know it. He's been dismissed for cause because of that. So the question that I want to ask all you is, has the power in the NCAA, because of this Wild West atmosphere with NIL in the transfer portal, has the power completely transferred over to the players and not the institutions. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it needs to probably be somewhere in the middle for the sport to be on a good, or the NCAA in general to be on a good trajectory. So we'll talk about that as well here in the third hour. But before all that, Joe Davidson coming up next will join us to talk more about Sac State joining the MAC. We'll also talk about the local high school scene. Love having Joe. Joe's the man. Joe's rants, you might be able to get a rant out of Joe. He's been known to do a couple of them. You're not going to get one from me, but maybe we'll get one from Joe. We will see. We've still got another hour ahead coming at you here on Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. Rhino sitting in for Grant. Hour 3, Joe Davidson, straight ahead. Hour 3 coming at you right now. Grant Napear Show here on Fox Sports Sacramento. Rhino sitting in for Grant today. Thanks for being with us. You know, when I heard I was going to be sitting in for Grant, there was one guy. Now, he promised me he would be in studio, so we still need to make that happen. And maybe we will Friday when I sit in for Napes. There was one guy that I had to have on before any of this broke out with Sac State. That is Sac B's own and legend amongst college and high school sports reporting here in Sacramento. My buddy Joe Davidson joins us here today on Fox Sports Radio. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Rhino, I'm doing good. And kudos to you for doing such a nice job filling in for Grant, who's probably out there signing autographs.
Yeah.
Or, you know, probably said he had jury duty. Never mind, it was a holiday. But, you know, he's out there with the people or something. But, no, I mean, and I think I mentioned this once on Grant's show. If I were to join you in studios, management would just say, this is a pair we need.
Yeah, it's done.
Nice knowing you, Grant. You could go park cars out in the out there in the nearest parking garage.
Yeah, he loves traveling, right? Time to take a trip.
Yeah, no doubt. Kind of a slow day today, huh?
Yeah, very slow. Nothing going on besides Sac State moving to the MAC. Joe, what was your first reaction when you saw this?
Well, I know they've been, Mark Orr, the athletic director, and Luke Wood, the president, they've been looking hard into the FBS for a while. And the university has been for several years. Easier said than done. You know, just going to some parking lot or used car lot and kicking tires. It's a exhaustive effort. It's a pricey effort. And so, in short, what we're talking about here, Rhino, is Sacramento State, since 1993, has played at the FCS level, which is the second highest in college football in NCAA Division I. The highest, as we know, is the FBS, where you could go to bowl games and you're playoff eligible and you have television revenue. And it's just a higher level of football. More guys get drafted out of there. That's considerably more than the FCS. So there was interest, certainly, to join or listen to or try to engage in conversation with the Pac-12, the revamped Pac-12, and the Mountain West Conference, because it's all about realignment now, right? I mean, how do Cal and Stanford, decades-long members of the Pac-12, wind up in the ACC, which is a lot of East Coast teams,
right?
So because teams will move around, you're looking for the best revenue and the best survival or sustainability for a program. It's also good for the university. So I knew this was coming. I'm really impressed with how fast it happened. I thought, if anything, the news would be, 2027, because 2026, we're already in 2026.
Right.
I mean, that's just a few months from now for football season. And so Sac State has 8 games scheduled with this 5-year deal with the Mid-American Conference, and they have to fill 4 non-conference games, Rhino. So that's going to be hard, and I got to do that now. It could be some FCS type programs. It will not be UC Davis. That rivalry is on hold for now until they could figure something out. But I think it's a great move for Sac State. It's not the Pac-12. It's not the Mountain West, which are more regionally located, but it's a step towards that because this is only a 5-year deal, not a lifetime deal, but they want to be a lifetime member in the FBS.
Joe Davidson joining us here on the Grant Napear Show. Joe, you said you expected this and it came a little bit faster than you expected. Is it too fast for where Sac State's at right now as a program?
No, I think Mark Orr and Luke Wood like going fast. They like up tempo. They were ambitious in getting Brendan Marion as a coach, and he's only here for 1 year, but now he's with Deion Sanders with the Colorado Buffaloes. They moved fast on getting Alonzo Carter as the new football coach here, and there's a great Instagram bit on right now where he told the football team this morning was told officially that this is not rumor anymore. It's not speculation, but this is done. Contract signed, and he led the big dance parade. And the Hornets were moving fast and getting Mike Bibby, the former Kings great, to lead their men's basketball thing. So that's I was, hey, I've had good conversations with Mark Orr and Luke Wood and asked them, is this, can you match the ambition with results? And so the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, the MAC, is it's a lot of schools in the Midwest. You're talking Illinois, and Kentucky, and Ohio, Michigan, a team in New York, UMass, and so it's not anywhere near here. But you're in the FBS, and you'll have ESPN games on maybe Tuesdays or Wednesdays and Thursdays. Does that sound odd? Hey, if you're a school like Sac State, you'd love to be on that, and that's kind of what helped Boise State 20 years ago, rocket into to college football, headlines with exposure on ESPN games on Thursday nights or a Friday night or a Wednesday or something, and that Bluefield became famous. So I don't think it's too fast. There's still more things to be done, though. Rhino, got to get that football stadium upgraded at Hornet Stadium, and there's also some plans to try to get a stadium built at Cal Expo, which is some 7 miles away. It's not ideal, but you find a way. And Sac State is fully counting on this community coming out and filling up Hornet Stadium. And Mark Orr, the athletic director, said today in a conversation that donors and sponsors and corporate possible sponsorships have reached out. And this is a big market here. It was the only one, Rhino, that did not have top 20 media market. This was the only top 20 media market in America that did not have an FBS football program. So that now changes, and the MAC wanted to have a California feel, and so that's where we are in college realignment. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens.
Yeah, Joe, Grant thinks or has said before that this is not a football city here in Sacramento. To that you say?
He's right. And even the Bay Area is not football mad and passionate. When Cal football with Aaron Rodgers in the early 2000s were nationally ranked top 5, it filled up in Berkeley. But a lot of times there's hardly, it's, UCLA games don't have had crowds of 7,000.
Yeah.
Which, is awful. Looks like a bunch of ants running around if you look at a 103-seat stadium. So Sacramento has never been an FBS, so that's going to be a great, counter. And I think it's very fair what Grant said. And their best team in 2022, I think it was, went 12-1 under Troy Taylor, the native son, went on to coach at Stanford, and they sold out a bunch of games. And that's some 20,000 at Hornet Stadium. And they had some good crowds this past fall in winning 7 games. But yeah, we will see. Will the television exposure help? It will certainly help financially because there's bigger television revenue to be made at the FBS level than the lower level FCS. So we'll see. It'll be up to Sacramento. I do know that Mike Bibby's arrival coincided perfectly with Sac State men's basketball opening up the on-campus pavilion inside the well, and it overflows to 3,000. And for all the home games this season, for Mike Bibby's first season, they have overflowed that venue. And I think they are 9-2 at home, so they backed it up. Winless on the road. That's a story for a different day. Point being, Rhino, that put an entertaining product out there against teams that you might not know or otherwise. People will come out. And I do know Grant knows who Bowling Green is. I think he is a graduate of that spot. He played athletics. He was a student athlete.
Yes, yeah, he was a lacrosse player.
He'll go to that game.
He will.
He'll go to that game. He will go to that game, Rhino, if we have to somehow coerce him to go.
Well, Joe, assuming that we haven't, taken his job, he'll go. But if he's not in Sacramento anymore, all bets are off. Maybe he'll go to the Bowling Green edition.
The Bowling Green, he'll be, exactly. So it'll be curious to see how this all unfolds. And a good question on your part, is it too fast? No, I don't think so. It's just, bam, here it is. You remember when they, and then Illinois State is the one that left the MAC to allow an opening for Sac State because there's 12 programs. So we'll see. And then just to keep this clear too, Rhino, for your listeners, the Big West which is predominantly California, is where Sac State will be in all other sports starting this fall. And that's a really good move. The Big West for
Yep.
baseball and basketball and softball. You think of the Big West, that's Cal Poly, Northridge, Fullerton, Long Beach, Santa Barbara, Hawaii, whereas the Big Sky is in Montana, is in Eastern Washington, and Northern Colorado, and Weaver State programs like that. So some real good moves here for Sac State, and then will it turn out? That's the fun of it. Got to go watch the games and see what happens. See who's watching and see who's attending, and another big bonus too, Rhino, is Luke Wood and Mark Orr of Sac State said today that I've heard this over the years too. If Sac State had an FBS football program, more Northern California kids, and especially up down the Sacramento region, would stay home and play. They want to play at the highest level. Well, the FBS offers that. And so it's all about recruiting too.
Right.
Television revenue, recruiting, image, name, image, likeness, sponsorships. That's the business of it. And then you play the game.
Yeah, I want to get to that in 1 second. I do want to ask you this, because I agree a Mountain West jump probably would have been a little too lofty. I think their eyes were bigger than their stomachs. Certainly the same would be said about the Pac-12 and how they're redoing it. But when you look at, because I talked about this in the previous segment, some of the terms of this move, Joe, did Sac State have to concede more than another school in a similar position to get into the MAC?
I don't know the direct answer to that, but it is a good question. It's worth following up on. There are some concessions that they're giving up. Sac State will cover costs,
right,
for the 4 traveling teams this fall coming out here, which costs, Mark Orr, the athletic director, said today that annual budget will be, $150,000 to $200,000 to get everybody flown out here. This will not go against student fees. They're not going to hike student fees. Students are still free to get to all the games. They believe, big picture, that Sac State does, that they'll make so much money on all this. Football will help fund football, and they'll be able to add more classes too. And so if it's some $23 million that's owed to move into the FBS, that's not all one lump sum check. There's a $6 million, $5 million fee to the NCAA to move up. And otherwise the rest of it's going to be, and then Sac State will pay $6 million this season and then pay it over 5 years. So it's not you got to pay us now type of thing. And how's that going to be paid for? Football sales, food sales, ticket sales, merchandise, all kinds of things, corporate sponsors. They'll get more corporate sponsors with a move like this.
Very good. Yeah. The other thing under the deal, they're not going to receive any conference revenue distributions. Is that typically separate from the television revenue, Joe?
Well, the television revenue, Rhino, that deal was already signed before Sac State came into play. So they were in that loop. They're not in the language of that, but that certainly could change here. And then the other revenue, they won't get any kind of bowl revenue. We're near the TV revenue. That's some of the concessions. And they're also ineligible for bowl consideration. And they give up hundreds of bowl games, it seems like, for at least 2 years, which is a normal probationary period moving up in classification from FCS to FBS. However, the bowl minimum is you have to have 6 wins minimum to become bowl eligible. And if there are not enough 6-win teams across the country, and some opt out, some teams opt out of playing in a bowl, then they look at the next grouping, and that could be Sac State right there. And
Sure.
Even if it's a weed whacker bowl held in Orlando, Florida, in a rainstorm, at least it's a bowl game, and conferences get money for that. And, Sac State's never played in a bowl game like that, so that's what you don't get when you're not in the FBS. So that'll all be curious to see, and we'll be doing stories in the coming weeks on who are these other teams, who are their mascots, who are some of their alumni, all that kind of stuff.
Joe Davidson from the Sac B joining us. We're talking Sac State football. Okay, before this announcement, let me ask you this. What was the state of Sac State football double state there. Said it twice. What was the state of Sac State football before this announcement with Coach Marion and recruiting and his leaving? What's that like now at the program?
Well, the Hornets feel like they had a good recruiting class with their first year, their incoming coach, or their now in coach, Alonzo Carter, who's got tremendous personality. He could really rev up a room. Yes, he's famous for being a backup dancer and choreographer and a writer for, and rap videos way back in the day. So why not still use that dance move? And that's a great video of him today on Instagram with Otis Amy, who's in the front office for Sac State, where they were celebrating all of that. And so we all know that recruiting's the lifeblood. You got to have it. And their biggest move, I think, was gaining a player back. The transfer portal can deliver you a lot of goods, and you can lose a lot of talent through the transfer portal. That's where college football has been the last few years. And so Sac State's going to have at least 50 new players this season, but one of them is going to come back as Carson Conklin. He was a high school star in Southern California, a freshman All-American quarterback at Sac State. And then Brandon Marion and his new staff came on. Very common when there's a turnover in staff, people jump in the portal. And he got picked up by Fresno State, started some games for Fresno State, which Sac State opens against this year. So that's an FBS program. And so that's a big boost because Sac State's problem last fall in winning 7 games, could have won more. It was quarterback play. And they were just too inconsistent and erratic, and had been the program's strength since winning its first Big Sky Conference championships, one of the best in the FCS. In recent years, they won 3 of them. So I think this news now, and I think part of the recruiting pitch, Rhino, was, hey, we are close to getting into the FBS.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen this fall, it's going to happen right around the corner. That's a good pitch. People want to play on ESPN. They want to play on in a conference where people play Division I high level football. So you add all this now, and I think there's some great momentum for Sac State. I think they're ecstatic with what's happening.
Very cool. Joe Davidson, we're talking Sac State. It's funny because you brought up the portal and, retaining players, and it's the Wild West right now in college sports with also NIL. Here's my question, and we were going to talk about this next segment, and I think the Jerome Tang story is a perfect example of this. Has the power really shifted, Joe, in your opinion, to the players now rather than the institutions in college sports?
Because of the portal?
The portal, NIL, being able... Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I could see that argument, but without really thinking about it much here, I think that the college programs still have the leverage. There were 10,000 student athletes who jumped into the football transfer portal. 10,000. Yeah. There's no way they're all going to land. There's not enough of those roster spots out there. And college football rosters do not have hundreds, or they do not have 100 or so scholarships to give every year, even though they might have a 100-man roster. They have up to like 25 or 30.
Yeah.
And so, and they're going to recruit nationally. The portal certainly helped Indiana, the Hoosiers, a forever basketball power and a forever downtrodden football program until the last couple of years. Of course, having Kurt Cignetti, who's a phenomenal coach. He made for one of the great stories in sports history this year by going 6-0. And yeah, you could still use the portal, but the leverage is still with the schools and the coaches, because the coaches have the hammer on if you play, and the scholarships, Rhino, are year to year.
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
a great
4-year
point,
scholarships
Joe.
or 5 years. They roll over deals, and if you're not cutting it athletically, academically, attitude-wise, they could cut you loose.
That's a great
or they
point.
could tell you get into the portal. So, do the elite players, the guys who wind up as first-round picks, yeah, they're going to have some leverage in where they're going to go. Troy Taylor is a great coach, been around for a long time, and he used to. We've talked many times over the years, and he has an old saying. There's a lot of high school kids who love the idea of being recruited more than actually playing the game of football. And that's the same with a lot of these guys in the portal. Some of these guys jump in the portal every year. They feel disrespected. They didn't get enough playing time. They didn't get enough NIL money. And it's just, some of these guys jump into the portal even though their team is in a bowl game. Or at FCS level, they're in the national championship game in their starter, and he's in the portal.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
It's a hot topic for people who are, football purists and college sports purists, and the idea of guys sticking around for 4 or 5 years. Sometimes it's still there. It's a lot less than it's ever been because of the portal.
No doubt. And no doubt Joe does the best job covering local high school college sports. I wanted to talk to you about Mike Bibby and the basketball team. We will do it next time. Make sure you check out Joe Davidson and Sac B. Check him out on X at Joe D. Joe, I just got to say, and I've talked to you about it a little bit over the phone when we have our few minutes screening, but I know how much you did for me personally, stuff you would never remember, but just in your writing or our interactions during my time in high school. And I am sure listeners out there have a story about someone they know or their kid that you wrote about. And I just want to tell you, thank you. You've made such a big difference in the lives of so many athletes in this area.
Well, thank you. That's why I still do it. I mean, I've been doing this since 1989 to Sacramento Beach. It's the only job I ever wanted. It's the only role I really wanted. It's still the same case. I run into people all the time, including at Sac State games when I'm checking out Bibby, and I covered him when I was covering the Kings a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And people come up and say hello, and they'll say the same kind of theme as you, and it's really cool. And what keeps me going is doing stories like today. It's like, this is still a fascinating type of story. It's still worth doing this job. The ins and outs, what did Sac State really just join an FBS? It's one of the incredible stories that I've ever seen around here to be able to pull that off in quick order and all that. But keep doing what you do. You're a natural at it. You're a great toe with Grant and asking him questions and bouncing stuff off each other. And so you're a gift to local sports, and we're glad to have you on the airwaves.
Appreciate that, brother. Steve's Pizza soon, okay?
Steve's Pizza with plenty of hydration in any form we can imagine.
Absolutely. Mainline if we can pull it off. All right, buddy?
You bet.
Thanks,
All right,
Joe.
Randall. We'll be in touch.
Appreciate you. Joe Davidson joining us. Great insight on the Sac State Hornets and the move to FBS. We still have a couple segments left here on a Monday, President's Day, getting you set up for the week ahead. Grant back tomorrow. I will be in the chair one more time on Friday. Looking forward to that. A lot going. We'll talk some more about Sac State on the other side. Sis, Grant Napear Show, Fox Sports, Sacramento.
We are the force.
Hope you're staying dry out there. It's been a wet couple of 24 hours, I should say. We got some more rain ahead in the schedule. So if you're driving home, be safe, be courteous, keep a little extra space. Ryan and Sac down with you, Grand Napear Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Amazing conversation there with Joe D. Really appreciate Joe Davidson joining the show. And he does show you the other side of the argument when it comes to Sac State making this jump. If this jump was in their plans, which clearly Joe laid out, it has been in their plans, the fact that they were able to do it so quick, if it was inevitable, then congratulations. Now, Patrick brings up a really good question in the YouTube chat. I'm not from Sacramento, but can you raise $21 million in ticket sales without killing the cost of building the stadium? Yeah, it's all going to come down to the support of the Sacramento area. And Joe said that corporate sponsors have reached out already to Sac State. You know, the first thing that I thought about when I saw this was exactly what Joe said, Cal and Stanford going to the ACC. And there were ESPN stories about the travel, the expense, the amount of miles, etc., because it's not just, a basketball team is one thing. There's still a lot that goes on with a college basketball team traveling, let alone traveling across the country. A football team's a whole nother animal, especially in college, because of the size of the team. Now, everybody doesn't travel, but think about all of the equipment and the backup equipment and all of the staff that goes along with it. It is quite the production, and all of that stuff doesn't fly to where the game's being played. A lot of it has to be sent via trucks to where you're playing. And so I'm thinking for Sac State, they're going to, and I know the MAC is not the ACC, but is Sac State ready for that? At least the Mountain West would have been closer. And so I think the two biggest things, the two things that you need to know from this: is it good for the program to be in FCS? I'm going to actually take it to three things. Yes, Joe's correct, or in FBS, excuse me. Joe's spot on. It is good for them to be in FBS. There's that increased notoriety. You'll be on TV. You can pitch to the recruits that you're FBS, some that could stay home, because believe it or not, Sacramento is a very coveted recruiting area for high school football players and a lot of high school athletes in general. So that long-term, good. Short-term, did they concede too much? And I don't know enough, but as a novice, seems like a lot of concessions, that you're not going to get distributions from the MAC, that you're paying for travel for the other teams to come to Sacramento. Now, Joe pointed out it's a 5-year deal. That makes sense. So there's those questions, but out of the three things, the biggest thing of all is, will all of you show up and support this program? That's what it comes down to. Sac State is betting that this community is going to turn out. And Joe pointed out, this community has turned out for Mike Bibby. 100%. Mike Bibby is doing good things with that basketball program, and there's not a better person they could have put in place of that program. One, because Mike's notoriety with the best times and being one of the best players, memorable players from the best times of the Kings, is a huge asset. But two, Mike had been coaching high school basketball. It was the next step for Mike in his coaching journey. And so, yeah, that program is still very raw. It's at its fundamental lowest level in terms of where you start a program in a rebuild, but good things are happening with that. And we know this is a basketball town. Do we ever know it's a basketball town? For better or worse. So will it be a football town? that will be very interesting to see how it continues to play out. But again, Sac State to the FBS. They are a legitimate Division I bowl program. When Joe was talking about going to bowl games in the Weed Whacker Bowl, all I can see, like if this works out, watch, there's going to be a Farm to Fork Bowl at Sac State's new stadium in 15 years. In fact, mark me down for that prediction. There will be a Farm to Fork Bowl if this all works out at the new Sac State football stadium. I also asked Joe about the power when it comes to college sports. And this kind of goes beyond college sports. I think this goes to just sports in general. Grant and I last week talked about specialized training and kids from a young age. If they're going to be a pitcher, well, they're only doing certain movements. And we've had the bigger discussion. Is that why we're seeing more injuries at the pro level? Soft tissue injuries in basketball. So we've had that part of the conversation. But here's the other side of the conversation. What about coaching? Right? I'm looking at the YouTube chat. Old school coaching, not in today's world, says Mark. Thanks for the comment, Mark. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Jerome Tang, the head coach of, well, actually, the ex-head coach of Kansas State, was fired. If you don't remember from last week, Jerome Tang was not happy with his team's performance after a game. Here's what he had to say.
This was embarrassing. These dudes do not deserve to wear this uniform. There will be very few of them in it next year. I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans, our student section. You know, it is just ridiculous. We got practice at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we will get this thing right. I have no answer and no words. So y'all got two questions. So whoever want to ask two questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability right now. But right now, like I'm like pissed, and this is all right. Questions.
He didn't throw a chair. He didn't use any curse words. He just had strong statements. How many of you out there that have played a sport have had a coach tell you and the rest of your team something along those lines? That's background noise to me, based off the way I was coached growing up. So Jerome Tang, who, by the way, took Kansas State to an Elite Eight in 2023. He was also the Naismith Coach of the Year in 2023. He was fired. He's been fired. And this is what the AD of Kansas State had to say about his firing.
You know, certain things that could potentially bring embarrassment. You know, basically his comments about the student athletes and the negative reaction to those comments from a lot of sources, both nationally and locally.
Really? Okay. All right. So you run a soft program. Your student athletes, that half of them, as Joe pointed out with the transfer portal, probably won't even be in that jersey next year, or planning not to be in that jersey. That's why you fired him. I wish that's where the story ended, because there's enough there to talk about coaching. I mean, that's a coach that came to the podium that was embarrassed by his team's play. If you're a fan of that team, does that not say like, oh, our coach cares? He gets it. Yeah, it's a little strong, but it's going to get through to the players. If that was my team, that's how I would perceive that. So there's the coaching element of it, and now there's this. Kansas State is firing him for cause. Yes, for cause. The cause being that he violated his contract. Let's replay what the AD said one more time. The AD is making the argument that they do not need to pay the $18.7 million buyout on his contract because of the comments he made about his team, saying the guys would not be back in K-State uniforms. Listen to this. This is why he was fired for cause, per the AD.
You know, certain things that could potentially bring embarrassment. You know, basically his comments about the student athletes and the negative reaction to those comments from a lot of sources, both nationally and locally.
Reaction to those comments got him fired for cause? Man, if you are a college basketball coach right now, what are you thinking? And by the way, you know this is going to end up in a court somewhere. I think there's little doubt about that, as it should. Unless there's something we don't know about this story, which very could be, it could be the case. But unless there's something we don't know, it's an awful look, K-State. Fire the coach and pay him the money because of his poor performance this year. That's what you want to put it on, then do the right thing. There is a growing trend of universities looking to get out of these buyouts. Here's an idea. How about you don't put 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollar buyouts in contracts? Maybe we start there. Final segment straight ahead. Fox Sports Radio, the Grant Napear Show. Rhino in for Napes. Today we bring you home on the flip side.
We are
Final segment here on the Grand Napear Show. Ryan in Sacktown. Rhino in for Grant today. He will be back tomorrow. Seeing some draft names in the chat. Appreciate that. We're going to be all over the draft prospects as we get closer to the NBA draft. Kings back in action against Orlando on Thursday. You ready for the home stretch? Be talking about that more as well. But let's go to the phones. Love talking to this guy. Dave, in Elk Grove. How you doing tonight, Dave?
Hey, Rhino. How you doing? Great job of filling in for the legend, Grant.
Appreciate it,
buddy. I heard you earlier. You're not following the Olympics too much, but I'm gonna implore you Thursday morning, 10 a.m. on USA Network to watch the gold medal hockey game between the USA women and the Canadian women. I don't know how much of a hockey fan you are. I know I am. I know Grant is. But this rivalry between the USA and the Canadian women is hit an all-time high, and the United States women team has played 5 games, scored 26 goals. They haven't given up a single goal in 5 games.
Wow!
And they're looking to get some revenge against the Canadian team that beat them for the gold medal in the last Olympic Games. So if you got nothing on your calendar Thursday morning, it's going to be a great watch.
Dave, I will definitely be watching the hockey. I have not caught a full game. I've caught the highlights, both men's and women's, but it looks like Team USA on the men's side is headed for a matchup with Team Canada as well, correct?
Team USA is in. Team Canada is not. They have to win one more game, but it's probably going to be Team USA Canada on both sides. So must watch hockey.
Hey, quick question for you, because I knew before I watched a highlight that hockey rink was not regulation size. You watching as much hockey as you do, does it stick out to you?
So Olympic size rinks are different than NHL size rinks, but I think they're playing on NHL size rinks. Normally, Olympic size rink is 200 by 100, and it's basically 15 feet wider than an NHL rink, but they're playing on NHL size surfaces in the Olympics.
All right, there you go. I think
I'm pretty sure.
Perfect, Dave. You're the best, man. Stay away from the tables, okay?
All right, buddy.
All right, Dave in Elk Grove, Bills fan, man. Like, I feel for Dave. Coming from a Seahawks fan that is grateful that the Seahawks won the championship, but man, that Bills team. And Dave, I'm not going to belabor this. I don't want to make it more painful than it is, but it pains me for Bills fans. Like, if I was a Bills fan and I watched the AFC playoffs this year, oh, man, especially the way that Josh played. Tough. You know, another thing that is tough for me to stomach, and I have no problem with legalized gambling. I don't. I think the problem with legalized gambling is the different leagues that are playing both sides of the fence when it comes to the P's, as I call them, the profits and the problems. This was Adam Silver on legalized gambling on Saturday.
I'm paying enormous amount of attention to. It's rapidly evolving. Prediction markets have now come on the scene fairly recently as, I don't know how else to say it, major sports betting marketplaces. Whether prediction markets are allowed to go forward in the form they're in now will, I think, ultimately be an issue for the courts and for Congress. But even if they go away, I mean, the league is now dealing with essentially 40 different jurisdictions that have legalized sports betting in the United States. Still a huge illegal market. And I'd say one other category that I hardly ever hear people talk about is that the last I looked, there are probably 80 countries in the world outside the United States that also have legalized betting on the NBA. So it concerns me in the totality of all this betting that we need a better handle, no pun intended, on all the different activity that's happening out there.
I'm sorry, Commish. Yeah, it's being left up to the states. But Commish, this gambling thing, this legalized gambling thing in other countries, all that information was available to you before you started taking the money from those companies, which I have no problem with those companies. But you know what's going to come on the other side of that. And what Adam Silver, this is the second or third time he has now all but dropped to his knees and asked for betting and legalized gambling to be taken up at the federal level. The players, think about them. We've talked about them. Their heartburn over what comes from some fans, which could come from fans regardless of gambling, because they're fans, and some people take it over the line. But we've had athletes that have had to put their families in hiding. You've had coaches that have had to move residences. You know, that's all not cool. Period. Never cool. But it goes to another level when your league is taking money from the companies promoting that. And Adam Silver talked about the big sweeping changes that are coming because of AI and the different options that are going to be available to consumers taking in the NBA in terms of different broadcasts, simulcasts. You can get one that is for a novice. You can get a deep hoops head look into the game as it's happening. And he had to pause because it looked like live betting was going to be the next thing coming out of his mouth. And you can share your opinion on social media. Yeah, it's a problem. It is. They're going to have to navigate it. Now, I get that the prediction markets, those are fairly new, but I just find it very rich. Very rich. That none of this was considered before the partnerships, the lucrative partnerships. Because I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand what some of the results could be on the other side of being in these partnerships if you are a professional sports league. Again, no problem here with legalized gambling. None whatsoever. We've talked about DraftKings on this show. I have an upcoming partnership with another company. I have no problem with legalized gambling, but it hits me wrong. If I'm a player and a fan of a league that is now saying this is out of control, we're still taking the money, can this please be taken up by the federal government while we still take the money? If you catch my drift. 3 hours goes really fast. Hey, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Huge thanks to Napes for trusting me in this chair. It's always a pleasure to fill in for him. Joe Davidson, awesome conversation with him. Thank you very much, Joe. Love talking with him. Also, Jerry Reynolds earlier in the show. We've got a full week coming up for you. Kings are going to get back in action here in a couple of days. They'll have a practice probably late Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday, they are in action against the Orlando Magic, and then they hit the road. So we've got a lot going. Can't wait to get Nape's takes on what's going on with Sac State making the move to FCS. You'll get that tomorrow, 3 p.m. right here on Fox Sports Radio. Big thanks also to all of you, chat line, text line, YouTube, callers. Appreciate you. always fun, always goes too fast. And we're going to be, again, coming at you with a lot of fun stuff, especially when it relates to what's next for the Kings and breaking down these draft players, these college players that the Kings might be looking at with a very, very coveted pick. An opportunity to possibly draft that player that the Kings have never had. They've never had that player. Could they get him in this draft? We'll see. Plus, 26 games to see how this team develops. We've got a little bit of everything for you. So big thanks to all of you. Huge thanks again to Jerry Reynolds, Joe Davidson, Grant Napear. Appreciate you, boss, for letting me fill in for you. Until tomorrow, 3 p.m. Thank you. On behalf of myself, the team here at Fox Sports Radio, Grant's back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Have a great night. Ryan in Sac Town telling you so long.